All right. Well, welcome to the Leva podcast, where we cover all things related to being a happy, successful mother, woman, and professional. Today, we have a very special guest, Tabitha Kavanaugh. She's a colon cancer survivor and just an incredibly gregarious, encouraging, and joyful human. I feel so lucky to have met her and have her in my life now. In this episode, we're going to discuss Tabitha's pregnancy, how she found out she had cancer after giving birth to her baby, her double mastectomy and hysterectomy, her background as a nanny, and why she made the move to being a recruiter. Thank you so much for joining us today, Tabitha. We're so excited to talk to you.
So good to be here. Thank you, Vanessa. Oh my goodness. That's a mouthful. All the things.
Well, let's start diving into your background. If you don't mind, let's start on your journey of getting diagnosed with colon cancer. How did that go?
Yeah. So I was pregnant when I was 29, into like when I was 30, and then I was 31 when I was diagnosed with colon cancer. And come to find out, I did have cancer when I was pregnant, and I thank God every day that I didn't know that.
Wow.
Not that my outcome would have been different in terms of like 1,000% would have moved forward with having my baby and all those things, but obviously that complicates things when you're pregnant, finding out that you have cancer and then they need to incorporate chemotherapy and et cetera. So yeah, I had been having symptoms that actually started when I was pregnant. So this is really good because as a first time pregnant person, about to be a mother, I didn't know what to expect. And your body does all sorts of crazy things when you're pregnant. So I sort of ignored some of the symptoms. I had some blood in my stool in case anyone else is going through this, and like some nausea, but who doesn't have some morning sickness, or some all day sickness when you're pregnant. And so I really pushed it off. And then I had my baby and the symptoms kept coming. I started really with like daily nausea and dizziness, extreme fatigue, more so than it felt like maybe, I don't know, new moms are tired, right? Moms in general are tired. We have a lot on our plates, but I knew something was wrong. And so I went to the doctor for about a year. They looked at me, as an otherwise young, healthy woman. On the outside, it didn't look like anything was wrong with me. So they were just like, well, it's probably this. Here's some anti-nausea meds or whatever. And finally, it was the week of my wedding. I went to the bathroom and it was lots of blood. And I just rushed myself to the ER and ended up staying overnight. And a few days later, had a colonoscopy. So I was prepping for my, wedding, doing the seating chart, and also like prepping for a colonoscopy. So that was crazy. And the interesting piece, and I'll kind of wrap this up. But when I got my results back, they told me that they were benign, meaning not cancerous. I knew something was wrong. I did not take that for an answer. I didn't know if it was cancer, but I just knew that I'm not going to stop. The short of it was I went in for a procedure to remove the polyp in a few different parts. And a couple weeks later they called and I had cancer. So it was crazy. It was crazy. My daughter was about almost 2 at the time.
Oh my gosh. That is really crazy. Can I ask you a couple questions about that? Okay.
Yeah.
So let's go back to when you were pregnant and you had blood in your stool. What about that? Like, tell me how that went, why you didn't think that was something you should pay more attention to. Did you just think maybe that's part of like pregnancy, or how did that go?
Exactly. Because at first it wasn't, it's like a little bit here and there, and it would kind of come and go. So it would go and I would just forget about it a little bit. And that's really what made me think it was just pregnancy related. What made me realize it wasn't was when it continued, of course, after, and then other symptoms started coming into play. But it just reminded me to always tell whoever's caring for you, your physician, your OB, whatever, to make sure they know exactly what's going on with you during your pregnancy. Even if it's something so little that you just feel like is so stupid and you don't want to sound like a complainer or whatever, a hypochondriac or whatever name you're trying to like give yourself in your brain to justify why you shouldn't say something. This taught me exactly like I need to say something, because had I said that when I was going through it, they may have been able to say, that's not pregnancy related. We should probably look into that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
It's great advice for folks that are, maybe dealing with the same thing, or at least maybe not yet there, but to know that that's something that's not normal and to look into it.
Yeah.
A couple other questions, like, why did it take them so long to do a colonoscopy?
Good question. Yeah, it's a good question. And right, wrong, or indifferent, why I'm still looking for a PCP today, because after that happened and after I put my trust in a PCP that just totally missed it, despite, I mean, I'm almost textbook in some ways when you look up the symptoms of colon cancer and then you look at what was going on with me. The difference was I was a young, healthy, vibrant looking woman, when they think it's an old man's disease. So, yeah. Yeah.
Any insight into why the results came back benign?
That's always been a question I've had, honestly. And I don't know. I thought maybe they took a biopsy of a piece that for some reason just came back without it. But I mean, it was stage 3 at that point, and it had spread to some other lymph nodes. And I don't understand that to this day. And the scary part is, and this isn't to scare people, but it's to know to advocate for yourself, because after that happened and I was still trying to figure it out, I didn't yet know that it was cancer. I remember I went to a surgeon locally and he was telling me, oh, your polyp is here. And if we remove it, you're going to lose, like, he was just telling me all these things that ultimately were not true. But I didn't know that at the time. So, but I knew something was off. I didn't trust that surgeon. And so I kept looking. And I live in Pennsylvania, but I ended up at the Cleveland Clinic in Ohio, where I was just had such good care. The surgeon knew what he was doing. Everything, all my fears were like put to rest for the most part. It was so good, but you have to advocate for yourself, because doctors can be wrong too, just like any profession, right? Can lead you astray, and you have to kind of follow that inner gut feeling. And if you're not sure, just ask for a second opinion. There's nothing wrong with that, and it could save your life.
Absolutely. Those are excellent points. Maybe one more question. How did you find the doctor in Cleveland?
How did I find the doctor?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So through a family member, I found him, Dr. Thomas Garafalo out of the Cleveland Clinic. I'll shout him out because he is an angel. It was so funny. All the pieces came into play. So when I went to go meet him, a family member had actually referred another surgeon. When I called that surgeon and told them what was going on with me, they referred me to him. So it was very much like a godsend. And when I met this surgeon, he had a Pittsburgh Steelers lanyard around his neck. And I'm from Pittsburgh, not like born and raised, but tried and true Steelers, as much as I can be. And he told me that his mom lived in the same exact little town that I was currently living in at that time. And I was like, okay, this is my person. Like, this is my person. You were sent to me. I'm so excited. So, yeah, it's really cool how that all went down. And, I'm glad that I stayed open to things and looked outside. I could be living a very different life right now. So,
yeah, no kidding. Yeah. When you see all those things coming together, that's incredible.
Yeah.
That's really neat.
It's great. It's why it's so important for us to share our stories. And this is why some people might listen to this and say, wow, like, girlfriend needs to put a filter on. But I believe wholeheartedly in sharing all of this, because someone listening, maybe they're not, like you said, maybe they're not going through any of these things, but maybe in a year from now, something changes and they remember this one podcast they listened to that one time where this girl talked about all these things. And maybe they thought I was crazy then. And maybe, they're like, wow, okay, I really listened to that. And for some reason it spoke to me. I didn't know why. So it's just, we share our stories so we can give each other hope, and we can build community. And so I appreciate the opportunity to share this.
Yeah, I appreciate you being here. And I love what you're saying, because we all have issues that we deal with in our lives health-wise, right? Whether it's us directly or it's people that we love going through something. And so I feel like hearing this and knowing what you went through and knowing how hard you had to fight to kind of get the right diagnosis and get the right treatment and all of that is helpful so that we can apply it even outside of the specific situation, right? We can apply it to anything that we're dealing with.
Right.
So it's great.
Absolutely. Yeah. I love learning other people's stories. You know, even if I never go through what they've went through, there's just something about a person that has bounced back.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's cool.
Let's talk about your newborn journey. And did your expectations meet your reality?
That's a really good question. So, yeah, you know, I always wanted to be a mother. I would say I call her my miracle baby because of all the things that had happened. And I, you know, can no longer have children biologically. So I just am so thankful for her. And so I really just soaked her up. And, when I was about 6 months pregnant, I was laid off. And that was one of the first layoffs I had ever been through. It was scary. We just bought a new house. I was pregnant, very pregnant. And I found that when I started job searching, everyone was just like, call us back after you've had the baby. It's like, wow, I feel like you're not allowed to say that. Yet I also felt like there's nothing I could really do about it. So luckily, my in-laws owned a restaurant at the time, and I was able to work there and kind of balance that with being a mother. And it really helped that I had great family support. And no, not everyone has that. So it's not lost on me. And it really, I think every new mom is just trying to figure it out. And we all doubt ourselves, and we all have extreme amounts of mom guilt on certain occasions. So all of that was very real and very true for my experience. So, yeah, it just being a mom led me down this path of, I wanted to be with my baby, and it was almost, I'm trying to think, like, harmonious that I had been laid off and then had the time to spend with my baby. So, that led me into when I started to be a nanny because I had babysat before, and I really wanted to keep her with me. I didn't want to go back to work and have someone else, watching her all day, every day. So I just did what I had to do and what I wanted to do at the time to be with my daughter. And it worked out so perfectly that I was able to nanny for a little bit before I was diagnosed with cancer, and got to spend those critical years growing with her. So, yeah.
I love that. I love that you were able to prioritize your time with her. And even though it came about in maybe not the most opportune and ideal way, that you were able to kind of make that work. How much time, if you don't mind me asking, did you take between having her and then kind of working in the restaurant?
Yeah. Let's see. Well, I worked in the restaurant when I was pregnant. It's actually kind of a funny side note is I remember like it was a smaller Greek type restaurant, almost like a Chipotle style where you walk through and you pick your
Cool.
food. It's got like a thing,
Yeah.
right?
I want to go.
They're still around. I'd be shouting them out right now. But no, it behind the counter, there's only a little bit of a thin walkway, and I had quite the belly when I was pregnant. So it was like you find yourself trying to squeeze by other workers, and you're trying to suck in, but you can't.
Yeah.
So I was like, okay, you guys, I guess I should probably be finished working here now. And then I helped after and everything, but I spent the first 6 months at home with her, and then I nannied until she was about 2. And then I continued to nanny a little bit, very, very sporadically throughout chemo, because chemo, you don't really want to limit your exposure to, sicknesses, and kids are little germ factories. So, I had to kind of walk away from that, but that was okay. Cause I knew that wasn't my full-time thing. That was just something that I was doing to, provide care for someone else's child while I could also provide care for my own. And it takes a special family to, allow you to do that. So I was really, really grateful for that journey. And, yeah, it was good.
That's amazing. I love that. Our son, we had a nanny. She still works with us sometimes. She's a part of our family now. She's amazing, and she will always be with us. But she was his nanny since he was 2 months old. Aww. And when we moved to Kansas City, her family moved with us, and she's just amazing. And she ended up having a baby. When Roosevelt was 3 years old. And so they've grown up together too. And now it's so sweet to see them together. The little one, his name was Liam, he'll put his arm around Roosevelt and say, "You're my best friend. I love you, Roosevelt."
Oh,
So cute.
I
So I
love
love that being able
that.
to bring why not bring
I
the
mean,
baby?
why not? Like, I see the perspective from some families that say, well, if they're watching their own child, they're not going to pay as close of attention to mine. And that couldn't have been further from the truth. I was so concerned about their children and, of course, my own as well. But it was, I mean, why not help these kids build community as well and get them together with
Yeah.
other little tiny humans and they loved on her. I watched 4 kids at the time and they just loved. She was 6 months old when I started. And they would rush home from school and, she was kind of like the shiny new toy. They hadn't had a baby in their household in a while. So they were like, new baby. And so it was fun. It was good. You just have to, have the right perspective on it, I think.
Yeah, I totally agree. And it's nice for the older kids to get a chance to take care of somebody and learn those skills and nurturing. So I love that.
Yeah. No, she loved it.
So tell me about like breastfeeding. Did you have goals around that? Did you breastfeed your baby?
So I did, but it was kind of a hybrid. So from the very get-go, I mean, my baby was born, she was 9 pounds, 12 ounces. She
Oh,
came out looking like a 3-month-old. Um, and, I had some things around not feeling good enough because I had a C-section and in my new mom brain, I was supposed to have a vaginal birth because that's how it's supposed to be done. That's the way, right? The way. Because in motherhood, there are so many things that are like, well, you should be doing it this
oh
way,
yeah.
that way. And this all leads me back to
Not
breastfeeding.
true.
Yeah,
Not true.
not true. But I really did feel like, she was breech and I was like, what's wrong with me? Why can't she turn? Why can't I have her this normal way? And that leads me into breastfeeding. And that's why I share that is because there's so much pressure that you're supposed to do things a certain way, or you're supposed to have a doula, or you're not supposed to have a doula. It's like,
Yeah.
okay, time out, like come to a screeching halt. You need to know what's right for you. And so ultimately, I had a healthy baby. My recovery was actually worse than all of my friends that had had a vaginal birth. And that's enough to go through. Our bodies are being torn apart of having like these
Yeah.
babies. But it's good. It's right. But breastfeeding, I knew again was one of those things where you heard everybody say you should breastfeed. I mean, your doctor is putting so much pressure on you. And in the hospital, I started to breastfeed, but she was such a little porker. She was not satisfied with the little bit of colostrum or whatever was coming out at the time, and I had to supplement. And she was drinking those little 2-ounce formula bottles straight out the bottle, like just chugging it in the hospital. And so, yeah, to keep up, there was no way. I would have been pumping 24/7 to keep
Yeah.
up with the needs of this child. And that's what I would encourage every mother that might be listening or just do what feels right. A fed baby is a healthy baby. I've had friends that have almost lost their children because they were so like adamantly told breastfeeding is the way. And that's what they did because they wouldn't even look at formula. Little do they know their child is actually losing weight and becoming a bit malnourished because they don't have enough. And it's hard to tell sometimes like how much your child is getting or how much you're producing, especially if you're not pumping. So yeah, I did a little bit of both and I feel really good about that because she's a really
Yeah.
healthy 8-year-old right now.
Yeah, good for you. And I don't think there is any one right way. I mean, we have folks now that are using our app that going in, they're like, yep, formula, that's what we're doing. We're feeding that to your
Right.
baby. Great. If that's what you know is right for you and your mental health and your well-being and your baby, great.
Exactly.
We really should not be judging those things in our society. Like that's, yes, it's important, but it's really not in the grand scheme of things, the most important thing. So I
Right.
love that. Thank you for sharing.
For sure. I absolutely think there are benefits to breastfeeding, but not every woman can breastfeed. Not every mother had her child come out of her body. And so her body isn't having the reaction to make milk.
Mhm.
So when you look at a mom and you're like, you want to be, have your judgy pants on that like, well, why isn't she doing it this way? It's like, man, we are all just trying our best. Like I remember this time I was in the mall with my daughter and it was back when like a lot of moms and maybe I think moms still use the covers when they're breastfeeding. And I had one of those ones that was like a little tent that kind of went like like poked out. It was like really awkward. You're trying to shove your baby underneath while like, and I remember being at the mall doing that and just feeling like even a little bit empowered that no, I wasn't all the way exposed, but like I was like, I can do this, and I didn't care. I remember not caring what anyone thought. So like, this is my baby. Like I'm feeding her, I'm doing a good thing. And so I just think it comes down to like confidence in that moms don't have enough support. And so it's hard for them to have the confidence to move forward feeling really good about their decision, especially when it's a decision that varies from like the societal
Yeah.
standard or pressure.
Well, yeah, and it almost feels like no matter what you do, there's someone that's going to judge you for it. So
Yes, exactly. So,
it's critical.
what? I used to be more of a people pleaser, just because I love people and I want to make people happy. But at the same time, when you grow into yourself and you realize like who you are and what you believe in is like, that's the beauty of what makes this world what it is that we get to have the free will to choose. And yet there's so much out there that makes you feel like you need this permission of sorts. So I just try to encourage people to go with what feels right and ask for support and say your story so you can find others that will come to your tribe and you'll feel really good about the people in your orbit.
Yeah. Well said. Kudos. Bravo.
Woo! All right. Oh, cool. And you never know what's going to come out of my mouth. So good luck with this podcast.
Great. I think it's fabulous. I love it. Let's talk about after your cancer diagnosis and delivering your baby, you discovered you carried a genetic predisposition to breast and ovarian cancer. Is that right?
Correct. Yeah, I found out I had, it's called BRCA, and I'm positive for the BRCA1 genetic mutation, which basically means I'm as you mentioned, at higher risk for breast and ovarian cancer. I actually found this out about 2 weeks before I found out I had cancer.
Oh.
It had been something that my mom had actually been asking me to get tested for through like a cancer center for many years. I remember my early 20s, she was like, you should get tested for this. Like, I'm positive for it, and other people in our family are positive for it. And I just didn't at the time really get it or see the importance of what that even meant. And so I didn't, right? And I'm glad I didn't, because if I would have had a hysterectomy before I met my husband and had my daughter, then, my life would again be very different. And so I'm happy. I'm glad it all worked out the way that it did. But yeah, once I had colon cancer, they were like, cool, well, you're 32 now. All this stuff is going on with you. You are considered very high risk. And they gave me all the recommendations of what to do. So that's when I started and got the hysterectomy. I gave myself a year off because I had had a hysterectomy. I had had a colon resection the year prior. I had had a baby. So all the things. And yeah, and then the next year I decided to go forward with a double mastectomy as well, as a preventative surgery, because anything I could do to try to extend my possibility of being here with my daughter was all I cared about. So we didn't really worry about any of the fertility or having more kids. We were like, let's just do the things and get everything out. And yeah, that's crazy. It leads you down a whole path.
I think that's really impressive, and it's such a bold decision. I don't really understand how that. I haven't been through it, so I don't understand how that like decision making process must go. But I know women that have had breast cancer and still don't get a full mastectomy, and I don't quite know why. Why wouldn't you? I guess because some people just don't want to like lose that part of themselves. I assume. But what
Yeah.
makes you feel like, yeah, I'm going to do it? Like anything beyond what you said, it makes total sense. Like wanting to be here with your daughter, but was that a hard decision to make or no?
In the moment, it's almost like when you're in the thick of this like tornado, this whirlwind, and all these people are telling you, it's scary. They're making you feel like if you don't do this, like you're definitely going to get breast cancer or whatever. Like, and it was really scary. And I just knew that I couldn't, I needed to be here for the daughter that was here and not try to think about a future child.
Yeah.
It didn't have me yet. I had a tiny human that needed her mama so I think that's really just what drove me. And to be honest, I really didn't think about it. I didn't do a lot of research. I didn't ask enough questions. I didn't know what I didn't know. And I went for it. And while I don't regret anything today, definitely having those surgeries also impacted my life in a variety of ways that sometimes is hard when you think about if you had taken another direction. And so I know that it can be easy for people to say, oh, I wish I hadn't done that. And cancer really taught me to make decisions and then be okay with the outcome, regardless of what that is, because we can only do our best in any given situation. And so if you're constantly like making a decision and then not happy with the outcome and then regretful of the decision you made, you just have to learn and grow and get better with each decision. And so, yeah, I mean, I just did it and kind of dealt with the repercussions of what happened afterwards, as they came. And yeah.
What 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 kind of things happened that surprised you or that you weren't expecting?
Um, I'll I'll spare your audience from all the details, but you know, um, sexual health and a woman's body when things are all removed all of a sudden without the proper support. Um, it hot flashes or of course, like I went into immediate menopause. And again, something that doctors didn't really, it makes sense, but the doctors didn't really proactively tell me anything. It was more just like, let's get it done. And then it happened. And then it was up to me to go back for support. And I remember going back and just sitting in my OB's office crying. And she's like, it's normal. Like you had cancer, you had a baby. Here are some pills. And it was like, okay. So at the time, a desperate new mom going through all this stuff, like I took them, right? And for 5 years, I continued to take the antidepressants that were supposed to help. And with, again, no support, a yearly appointment that it's just like, cool, you need another or a refill? Here you go. And so I've recently weaned off of all of those within the last 6 months or so. Um, because like, when you know better, you do better. And it's not that there's anything wrong with medication supporting. I am fully for that, but what I'm not okay with are that really just being the answer because there's so many different ways and to go through things. So yeah, again, it comes down to advocating for yourself and asking questions and being fearless in that to get the information that you need.
Yeah, absolutely. The immediate menopause thing was really eye-opening for me when you had shared it previously when you and I were first talking. It makes a ton of sense, but it just didn't occur to me that that would happen. How
Yeah.
you navigated that?
Yeah, for a while I navigated it alone because as a 32-year-old at the time, I'm 37 now, I still don't have any friends that understand what I'm going through at this age. I have older friends who now have like maybe they're pre-menopause, post-menopause, whatever, who can understand. But at my age, the things that you kind of shouldn't, have to go through or you don't expect to have to go through. Yeah, I mean, the hot flashes, the like, just all the things. I mean, sometimes just not even wanting to like be touched in any way, shape, or form. Like, you just almost feel like your body is no longer your own because it's what it has felt like all those years. And I'm not trying to scare anybody that hasn't gone through it yet. We can navigate it, right? There are things to help you navigate it. And actually, I recently came across a company on LinkedIn called MIDI Health, MIDI Health. And I have to shout them out because they're really helping me navigate for the first time. And I have to be careful to not like get upset here, but for the
No,
first time,
you don't have to.
thank you. Yeah, for the first time, I feel like I finally have some support and help in navigating this journey, and doctors that told me that hormone replacement therapy wasn't possible because of my BRCA genetic mutation. So think about like all of your hormones get removed
Yeah.
and then none of them get replaced. And there's so many women living with now menopause is a bit different because you still have certain parts, right? But it was very different for me. And but even the women that kind of navigate normal like menopause, they're still going through so much and in the workplace as well, trying to navigate and just in life. And it's so hard to explain to others, especially men that don't quite understand what it feels like to be a woman and to go through those things and to feel that loss of yourself. And so yeah, it's really just it was a lot of me being way too quiet, and now I'm shouting it from the mountaintops because I want people to have resources and community.
I love that so much. Thank you for doing that. Thank you for using your voice and your platform. I mean, I now follow you on LinkedIn and I see what you post, and I think we need more of that. We need more people willing to be open and share what they've been through so that we can normalize these things, you know?
Yeah. I mean, I try, and you just have to be bold in knowing who you are and being unapologetic. Almost, some people might even call me a troublemaker because I just use my voice, but that's okay. I use my voice now more than ever because I know that if I get specific, then the right people will find me. But the more generic that I stay or just trying to please everybody, then sure, maybe I have more people reach out, but those people aren't my people. They might hear this podcast episode and say, "Oh my gosh, she's professional and she's talking about all these things." Um, I don't care, and that's cool. Again, you're not my people, and you're entitled to that opinion, right? But I'm looking for the people that vibe with all of this, what we're doing right here. We're here to help each other. We get one life, and I believe that we're supposed to do this together. I believe that it's a team sport. So,
yeah, 100%. Okay, this is going to be a pretty big change in topics, but speaking about career, being a career woman, being a professional, you've dealt with a lot. I mean, gosh, on the health side and on being laid off and then becoming a nanny. And then at some point you decided, I'm going to actually become a recruiter. I'm going to transition from being a nanny and I'm going to go be a recruiter. How did you make that decision?
yeah. It's a good question. I remember being on Facebook and scrolling. I was coming to the end of my chemo and I was like, okay, I'm going to take about a month after chemo just to breathe and give my body and my brain and all the things a chance to kind of recover from all the trauma that had just happened. And I was scrolling and another mom had posted there was a recruitment opportunity with an agency. And I was like, that sounds interesting. I had come across, I think, one recruiter in my career that had hired me for a previous job, the one I had gotten laid off from. And I don't remember her. I don't remember anything about our conversation other than it was short. And it just felt like it was kind of wasteful. I felt like it could have been better. I felt like we both could have learned more about one another to really feel like, is this a good fit? And so when I saw the opportunity, I just thought, I feel like I could be really good at this. I'm good at relationships. I love building relationships and meeting people, and I love helping people. So that feels like a recruiter does all those things. And I interviewed and had a few bumps in the road. And I just was honest. I was honest about everything that I had been through, and I got the job, and that person took a chance on me, and then later in my career took a chance on me again. Um, so I was just so grateful to have found recruitment. It really just like lights me up, and it feels like it suits me and allows me to use my gifts. So yeah, I'm about 6 years into recruitment now, and it's been a blessing. The ups and the downs. It's a crazy profession for sure, but it's been really good. It's really rewarding.
That's fantastic. I love that the person hired you more than once because I think that speaks volumes to you, obviously your ability and the way you build relationships and your professionalism and things like that.
Yeah, thank you. It was very flattering to know that I was his first call, and he had one hire, and he needed it to be me, and we did some really great things together. And I've always been kind of a zigzagger in my career. I've done everything from work in marketing at Crazy Straws, those loop-de-loop straws, to
Yes.
running a gift shop, to nannying, to recruitment. I mean, I've really kind of been, but every experience just made me a better recruiter. And I was laid off the other day, part of a reduction in force, and going through, I mean, this is my third layoff in 5 years, 5.5 years, and it's hard when that your performance is not the reason, and sometimes you take risks, but again, every experience has gotten me to where I am today. And so it's scary as a mom, especially if you're a single parent and you feel like everything is riding on you. But again, that's just another reason why we really do need each other.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it sounds like the community that you built, moms and otherwise, have been so important to supporting supporting you when you need it and helping. And then also you obviously do the same for others. So that's really awesome. Um, you're probably a little young because you're about, I guess, close to probably 5 years younger than me. But what you were just talking about, the most recent layoff back in 2000 when the dot-com bubble burst, the exact same thing happened, right? It was just a terrible time to be in tech. And I think it's interesting right now where we are because we have a low unemployment rate and everything else, but it's a terrible time to be in tech,
Terrible time to be in tech. The market is so saturated right now, and especially recruiters, talent acquisition, people.
Yeah.
It's interesting that when all these trendy things start happening, like diversity, it's like companies, I feel like, and I won't blanketly say this because there are some really bomb ass leaders out there, but it's like almost a copycat of these trends, right? And so it's frustrating to see the people that care about your people be the ones that are the first to go, that you don't see the value in. And the smart companies are reallocating all of those people. Recruiters and people are absolutely transferable to so many different parts of your organization, and they know you already. And especially if they're an advocate, if they're a cheerleader for you, find a way to keep them.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm excited for what's next. We'll see what's to come.
I'm sure it'll be great because you are, and you deserve great. And I've been through personally like three layoffs in my career, and each time have ended up in a better place. So I'm sure the same will happen.
Yeah, no, I believe that too.
Okay, getting close to the end of our conversation. You're familiar with what we're doing at Leva and our Leva app. What thoughts do you have on what we're doing, and what advice would you give new moms?
Good question. So, I love what you're doing because you're bringing people together and you're making a mom, no matter what kind of stage, but especially in that new stage, you're making her feel seen. You're making her feel welcomed and understood. And in a time where maybe mother might be facing postpartum, or even if she's not, I did not go through postpartum depression, but I know people that did. And it's very much a lonely place, from what I understand, to be, where you just feel like I should love my baby, but I don't feel like I do. And how can I ever admit that to the world? Because it sounds terrible. But it's a reality. And so again, I think the more we talk about it and the more we support others, the more that we can all be empathetic to a situation that a mother is going through, and then be able to be more supportive and understand how to offer that support in a way that is actually meaningful, not just you'll feel better. Because I appreciate any effort, but there are different ways to offer support. And sometimes a mother just needs more. And that's why I really love what you're doing. So my piece of advice, and it's all going to be tied together, is, again, as much as you can as a new mom, find ways to have community. Even when you don't feel like it, even when you're tired, you're sitting in the same spit up clothes for all day. Maybe your husband just came home from work and he's like, you've been home all day with the baby. What did you even do? Why isn't the laundry done? Or where's my dinner? Or even if they're supportive, but they're just you couldn't even change your clothes. You got something right there. But you know what? It happens, right? We've got those days where I slept in the pants from the night before and I woke up, I'm like, wow, I should probably bathe. But it's a reality that needs talked about. So just for mothers to embrace that they're going through something new. And even if it's their second, third, fourth, et cetera, child, every child's different. Your body changes, your hormones change, your situation is all over the place. It just depends. So I just encourage people to talk about it. Let the people around you know. And if they're not supportive, keep talking about it and you'll find the people who will be.
Awesome. That's great advice. Thank you. Yeah. Is there anything that we didn't touch on that you want to cover?
Oh, I love that question. I ask that in recruitment all the time. It's such a good one. No, I think you did such a great job. And thank you for facilitating an amazing conversation. I think we touched on all the things. I don't think I can think of anything other than just saying thank you for having me.
Oh my gosh, it's my pleasure. This is great. I love all of what you shared. It's wonderful. And I hope everyone out there gets a chance to listen and enjoy it. Thank you, everybody, for joining us today for our podcast. Don't forget to recommend the Leva app to all the new moms in your life. It's available now in the Apple App Store and the Google Play Store. Leva provides a holistic support system for new moms every step of the way. With our app, you'll have access to guided community conversations, one-on-one coaching, hundreds of scientifically researched articles and videos that answer your questions any hour of the day or night. And of course, mindfulness meditations and the ability to track your milk, your formula feeding, your baby's diapers, and your baby's milestones. We're here for you. Reach out if there's any way we can help you, and we'll see you next time. Thank you so much.